Hey everyone, welcome back to the Precision Laser Instrument YouTube channel. My name is Anthony, and today we're going to be focusing on the region section within TBC, which is mainly going to be your point cloud cleanup area. So let's get right into this. So the way that I like to start with this is we are going to just turn off the raw data just so I can see the point cloud. I do have a drawing file inside of here that I can import. So if I drag and drop this DXF file in, we can see here are the property lines. So the area that I'm interested in is only this property right here. So if I click on this line, you can see here I have this shape. So if I go to the properties of this, I can make sure that the shape gets closed. So I can say yes to make sure the shape is closed. And the reason why I want to do that is one of our options here is we can actually select the point cloud by a boundary. So if I say select by boundary and I select that shape, then what it's going to do is it's only going to highlight the point cloud data within that property line. So from there I could say create region. I can say this is my property point cloud. So now if I go to my point clouds regions, I can turn off the default, which gets rid of everything outside of that boundary or everything outside of that property line. Switches back to true color. So now I'm confined within that property line. So it's just less data to sort of deal with. Just a real quick way to get the data out. So now if I click on this point cloud region, the next thing I'm going to do is what's called extract classify point cloud region. So now what it's going to do is it's going to break up this bit of data into one of these 5 main classifications. So inside of here we have the option for indoor, which is your walls, floors, graded floor and ceiling, or we have our outdoor, which is our buildings, ground, high vegetation, poles and signs and power lines. The only other option inside of here is to create one new region per class. If I were to uncheck this, and let's say like in this thing here, there's a building here, you have the main building, a shed, and another shed. So if I were to have this thing unchecked, then it would create 1, 2, 3, 4 different building regions. If you want that, then by all means uncheck that. I don't particularly want that for this application, so I'm just going to leave this thing checked so I'll have one building region with 4 buildings within it. So once we have our point cloud selected, we can go ahead and click extract. And this is an automated process, so it just takes a little bit of time, and then it'll give us our point cloud that's been classified. All right, now the classification has been complete, and we can see here that our building is this blue color, high vegetation is going to be green, then you have the brown, which is going to be your ground layer, and then we can see that there's some things here that are still in true color. Those are generally anything that could not get classified, so they stay within the region that they were originally from. So if I turn off this property point cloud, that's going to turn off a lot of the noise. So the way that I handle this is we're going to leave this plane view and we're going to go into our 3D view. So here's our 3D view, and we can see some of the other classifications here. So we have this pole here that came in as this red color. We can actually see our power lines. They did not get classified properly as power lines, and that sort of goes into the goal for today is how to get this point cloud to be accurate and everything in its proper region. So to start, what I like to do is just turn off all the regions and turn on the base region. If you don't do the filtering, they'll be within your default region, but in this case, since I did the filtering from the start, they're all going to be within this property point cloud region that I created. And one of the first things we can see here is there is a pole here and some power lines. So as we can see here in our regions area, we have our create region, add to region, keep in, keep out. And these are all going to be employed here in order to get this point cloud cleaned up. So down here at the bottom, we have our polygon select, or it could be in a rectangular select. So for most selections in point cloud, you're probably going to want to use your polygon select. So I can come here, I can grab this power pole. Pretty straightforward. And with that, I could say add to region, and I can add that to my poles and signs classification, and now that's where it properly belongs, and it's moved to that region, so I don't see it here anymore. Same thing here, I can grab this power line, and I can add that to actually what we're going to have to do with that one is we're going to have to create a region, and we're going to have to call that power lines. So I can turn that power lines region off. How about that? Do the same thing here. And you see I sort of orbit around it in order to get the best angle to grab exactly what I'm looking for. I'll add that to my power lines region. Add that. Add that. And then we'll switch this back to poles and signs. Rotate this back around. And I think I want that in there. I want that in there. All right. So there's a few other things here. We have this sign. So we can grab that particular object. Add that to our poles and signs. And we have these series of signs as well. Add those. Now for some reason inside of here it has a hard time dealing with canopies. So we're gonna, oh, there's another sign here. So what we're gonna want to do is make sure that we get that canopy added into the building classification, but we don't necessarily want the garbage, you know, that's underneath it. So what we can do, and this is sort of where you want to switch back and forth between perspective and orthographic. So as you can see, as I move this thing around, I get sort of different perspectives on it, or different angles. So I'll switch this thing to an orthographic view, and I'm going to set this thing to my building classification, and I'm going to grab this section of the building. Now this is where we start employing the keep in and keep out. So I want to keep that particular section in, and as I rotate around, I do not want to have you know, these two, looks like pallets or something, and then plus we have some people underneath there. So what we can do here is we can draw the box around them, and we can tell that to keep out. We have a little bit of noise over here on this side. We can say keep out. And now we can grab this piece. So now we have that selected. I can go ahead and click add that to the building region, and then once I do that, then it turns everything else back on. So we have a fence line down here, kind of up to you however you want to handle that. We can create a new region. So if I grab the fence, we're going to do sort of a wide area selection. Once again, we can say the keep in. Look straight down on it. Grab this section of vegetation. Tell that to keep out. Keep out. Keep out. And then we can say create region, and we can call that fence. And we turn that fence region off. And this is it. You just slowly go through and get everything sort of cleaned up the way that you want it. So like we have this retaining wall. And you can see you have bits of it. So you can see we have bits of it already inside the proper classification. So if that's the case and you're unsure which region it's under, you can just turn a region on. So let's turn the building region on. So it's not in there. If we turn, maybe try high vegetation, it's not in that region. So a portion of it got pulled over into the ground region. If that's the case, we can grab this section out, for instance, and say, let's create a retaining wall region, and then we'll just have to go into ground and extract that particular section out and put it in the region that we want it to be in. So either that, or we could take this. We don't need its own separate classification. So what I'll do with this thing is I'll just say, let's add that to the ground region, so the ground region is complete. So here we have another piece of retaining wall. Add that to the ground region. And as you can see here, just slowly work through the point cloud and move things where they belong. So this is usually the first thing I'll do is I'll go through my default region or the noise region and just find anything inside of there that it classified as noise that may not be the case. So here we have another section of fence, so we can grab that out. Put that in the fence region. And that looks about right. So we'll turn that off. We'll turn our power lines on. So we can see our power lines, our poles and signs, our high vegetation. And you can see over here is the other part of that building is in the wrong region, so we can grab that. Add that to our building layer. We also have my truck, which is definitely not in the right region. So we can put that into the property line cloud where it belongs. Over here we have this section of fence and people. So here we can grab this, tell it to keep in. And we will add that to the fence region. And we'll grab the people and put them in the property point cloud. Turn our ground on. Verify that this is actually just ground. You can see our retaining walls there that we brought over the remaining bits. There's something here that looks like it's missing. So let's turn our property point cloud on. Yep, that looks pretty complete. Let's turn building on. Nope. Alright, so that all looks good. And now we'll turn our building classification on and just verify our buildings are correct. So we have some trees here in our building classification that we want to be moved to high vegetation. And now we have several of those things, several shrubs along the footprint of the building. So for those, once again, we can grab sort of the top-down view. Add that to high vegetation. These ones here are a little bit more complicated, but you'll use the whole keep in, keep out. So grab the entire thing. You say keep in. Keep in. Grab that section. Tell that to keep out. Keep out. And add that to high vegetation. Here we have another section of fence. So if we want to put that in the fence region, we can grab that. We can tell that to keep in. And add that to fence. So we can also see some sections of the roof, maybe, probably not in collection, but also turn on regions on or off in order to verify that they're not in some other region. So now if we have our building turned on, we can turn our fence region on. Then we can turn our ground region on. High vegetation, poles and signs, and power lines. So that turns all of our regions back on. And now from here is a good place to start in order to start doing some of your work or some of your line work. So inside of here, create region. It's pretty simple. That's where you create your own custom regions. Like we created this fence here. I had to custom create the power lines region as well because it didn't recognize them automatically. Add to region, like we already did. You select a series of points from a point cloud, add them to their appropriate region. Keep in, keep out, or what we just did there to filter it down or to whittle it down or to get them to where we want them to be. Select by boundary is how we were able to select the point cloud within the property line. So you can use just a standard 2D or 3D polyline, and as long as it's a closed shape, you can select by boundary. Merge regions, that will come into play if maybe you accidentally selected the thing to create multiple categories and you wanted to merge those two into one. So if I were to use that tool, I could grab two regions, so let's say ground and the building, and you see this thing highlights. Now I can merge those two together as one region if I wanted to. I don't want to do that, so I won't do that. Sampling region is something that we're going to go over whenever we start generating a surface, but essentially what the sampling region allows you to do is to take the point cloud and decimate it down, whether you do it by a percentage or you do it by spatial sampling. I generally use the spatial sampling whenever I'm trying to generate a surface. It makes the triangles look really nice. But that's you have two different options inside of there, which we'll touch on this in another video whenever we start generating the 3D deliverables. Same with sampling by intensity. This particular project really not going to apply to that, but we will tinker with that whenever we start messing around with the surfacing as well. All right, so our filter point cloud option. Inside of here, whenever we open up the tool, we get this window here, and we can filter by station. So we can choose individual stations or the entirety of the project and be able to offset it by a radius. So basically what that means is we can tell it to only show us data that we collected within a certain range away from the center of the scan. So from each station, it's only going to collect so much information. We can also filter this by elevation, so we're only going to see a maximum and a minimum elevation. So that is one of your options, but we also have the option to do a CAD line / alignment. So essentially within here, if we drew an alignment, let's say that we're dealing with the middle of a roadway, we could select that alignment, and instead of doing our offset by the radius, we can do it by the distance left or right of that CAD line or alignment, and then we still have our option to filter by elevation. This data set doesn't really call for anything like that, but one of the things whenever you're dealing with cleaning up or creating point cloud regions on roadways, as you can see, there's a lot of clicking and drawing, lines around areas. This will eliminate you having to do that. So if you've scanned a roadway and you just want the roadway in the scan, or you just want to start creating a surface off that roadway, instead of going around the perimeter and clicking where you think the edge of the roadway is, or clicking longer spans, or taking the time and doing it like every few feet, now you can just import that alignment if you have it, and use the filter point cloud options off of CAD alignment, and just say, okay, I want center line of road, 15 foot left, 15 foot right, hit compute. It will only grab that data, and it will give you that point cloud region that's going to be underneath here. And you can see here under more options, we can say create our new region prefix, so we can just change this from filtered region to roadway or to whatever it needs to be, and it's going to clip that one section out. I'm sure that whenever we go over the surfaces, I will go over this a little bit more and maybe bring in a different data set for that. But this is how this thing's intended to work. So I can choose any line, any polyline, or an alignment, offset it left or right, and clip that section of the point cloud out. So this video here was meant to highlight this region section inside of here, which I think we've pretty much hit on all of them. Next thing that we are going to do in the next video is we are going to go over generating 2D and 3D line work off of this data. So I'll see you in the next one.